Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of SAT Hacked. I'm Matt Kleinstiver. I'm going to be your host for today's episode. So, today I'm going to be doing something kind of crazy, um, something I've wanted to do for a while, which is I wanted to make a video taking a fresh SAT QAS test, but this is something I kind of do as a little exercise or a game to myself. I'm not going to be looking at the passages. Okay, I'm just going to be looking at the questions. In fact, I've gone through and I've covered up all of the passages so that I won't be able to see them. I'm going to be answering the test just based on the questions themselves. Now, am I going to do well? We'll see. Who knows? Okay, I don't expect to do that well. So it's going to be anybody's guess. I would be happy if I could get, say, half the questions right, or maybe even under half the questions right. We'll see what the curve is, but I'd be happy if I could come out with, say, 250 points, which would put me at about like average performance. So without even looking, I'm still doing as well as the average test taker. We'll see if I can actually accomplish that. So this is blindfold edition test review. So yeah, as I said before, I sometimes like to take SATs blindfolded. I'm not literally blindfolded, but I cover up the reading passages, I cover up the writing passages, and I just look at the questions. And I think it's a fun exercise and one that can teach you a lot about SAT strategy, actually. So yeah, as I said before, I don't think I'm going to get a perfect score. In fact, I almost know that I'm not because I've done this before, and it would be very, very hard without having that context to do well. But I still think it's fun. So yeah, that's the theme of the video. Let's go ahead and dive in. Here we are in QAS March 2021. As you'll see, I've kind of blanked out the passages, and we're in the writing test. I might do a reading test if you guys like this. Just let me know, and I'll do it for the reading section as well. That's interesting too. But let's go ahead and get started. So we're looking at our first question here, and I'm still going to try to identify the question types, right? That's huge. So I can identify this. This is a subject verb agreement question, okay? And I'll just tell you guys my strategy. I mean, of course, I could be wrong. We can't see what the subject is, right? But my strategy for answering these, all I have in front of me is the question itself, is to go like this, is to basically notice all of these answer choices would match with the word they, okay, or match with a plural subject. We could say they have illuminated, they are illuminating, they illuminate. So my guess is option A here probably says something like illuminates or has illuminated, okay? And again, I have not looked, I have no idea. And I think that would be correct. So I'm going to choose A for our first answer. And because that would match with it and would match with a singular subject. So we'll review these, I guess, after every passage and see how I did. That's answer one. Ooh, answer two, I'm nervous. Oh, this makes me really nervous. Oh, I have very little idea. Okay, this is a punctuation question. Uh, ooh, so brutal to decide. Uh, B strikes me as perhaps being good, like maybe it's setting up a list of the pollinators that are out there, but I don't feel sure. I don't really feel like, ooh, you know, almost impossible to say. I'm going to come back to this one, guys. It's almost. I'll have to think through it. B just stuck out to me. That was kind of my original um, intuition there, but I have no idea. Okay, oppose, prevent, revoke. Again, difficult to say without any context. I'm just going to have to guess here. Um, Revoke isn't right. I'm going to just throw that off. That's crazy. Oppose sounds like something a person would do, maybe. So if it's saying scientists provoke, in a scientific passage, I'm thinking I'm going to go with prevent. I'm gonna guess that. Again, who knows? Okay, that's half the fun. So this is a diction question where you're just choosing among different word choice. I'm thinking because I know that it's talking about pollinators, I'm dealing with a scientific subject, um, that that prevent works. Ooh, four, have no idea. Maybe this will help us get a little bit of context. Half the plants in each category were then illuminated during the nighttime hours. Okay, well, sentence placement, obviously, who knows? I'm going to guess probably C or D because this seems like something that would be like talking about, um, you know, a step in an experiment. And so that's probably not going to come early on. I'm going to say like, I'm going to go with like a C or a D. Let's go with a C. All right, because this is going to be, again, just a guess. All right, I feel like this is a question I can definitely get right. I feel pretty certain on this combining sentences question. So even without looking, I've got all the information I need to know really here. Um, something like B is definitely wrong. Some of you guys might have seen my tattoo. I actually have a tattoo of the word being with a line through it. This is unnecessarily formal and wordy. Um, you know, yeah, repeating the word those plants, visit the plants and those plants, that's gone too. That's repetitive. D seems nice and direct. Um, and this again seems like repetitive. So the lack of pollinators meant the bag plants could, yeah, again, repeating pollinators. You don't like that kind of repetitive situation in these combining sentences questions. So I feel almost 100% sure that I got that correct. Okay, obviously I can't look at the graph. I feel like I should be allowed to look at the graph. Maybe I'll change the rules so that I could look at the graph because that doesn't really count as the passage. So, but okay, but going along with our theme, this is such a ridiculous experiment, but I'm honestly having fun doing it. Uh, what are we gonna say? 15 fruits per plant, whether they were in dark sites or 20 fruits per plants in dark side, but 80 fruits per plants. Um, so yeah, we'll think more about this a little bit later on because there's an experiment running. 7 would have to like encapsulate the results of that experiment. And so, you know, I'm thinking the experiment has something to do with like pollinators being able to get to fruits and how that changes in the dark. So something like C, which is probably like the illuminated sites, but that seems so obvious that I don't know why you would make an SAT passage about it. The idea that yeah, 80 fruit. Okay, well maybe it's like can the pollinators get there if they can't see the plant, something like that. So C would make some sense. Um, Bag plants from the dark sites, unbagged plants from the illuminated sites, unbagged plants. I'm going to go with A here, unbagged plants. It's either A or C would be my number two guess, would be the ones that, I think it's going to give us like some sort of statement like the plants that did best were, or the plants that did worse, the plants that did best would be I'm rethinking that. I felt like A, but I'm going to come back to that. So we're going to do a little review. Transitions. This seems like A or D. I'll put this as my number two just to kind of make a mark. I'm skipping 9. You guys will notice. I'm going to come back to that. This is an idiom question. And I think it's going to, A should be something like correlated with. Correlated in could make sense, but if you're talking about like a scientific correlation, I don't think it's coexisted. I would knock that off. Corresponded, maybe if we're talking about like scientists corresponding about the findings of the study, but that doesn't seem likely to me. Correlated in, really that's a correlated with. So I worry that that is just not accurate. I mean, it could work in some contexts. Um, okay, and 11 shouldn't be too hard for us to get either. Option A probably says presence of. This is like a gift. So we want like physical presence, like something being there. And so this one I feel like is going to be C. I feel like that's like an 80%. So I'll try to judge my, so this is also idiom. I would judge that to be like an 80% guess on option C there. All right, so I skipped some. Let's go back to those. Okay, A, I'll kind of put in. I feel pretty confident there. I'll say 90% there. 2, I wasn't confident about. I mean, I can't spin forever as much as I'd like to trying to think about it. I better just go with my gut, but I cannot be sure here. I would say there is like a 0% confidence. Maybe I'll say, 10%, 20% confidence that that's right. Prevent, 50%. A could be a good option here. I don't think it's going to be, yeah. Maybe even, I would even up that to 60%, that I feel my confidence level there. Now for 4, pollinators. While, so that, I don't think it's C. I'd eliminate C. I don't think, you rarely see these kind of like comma transition words. This could set up a contrast. This would set up the cause and effect. But without the context, it's really, really hard to say. So that, while. Oh, see, I can't. I'm just going to have to go with a random guess on this one. I'm going to randomly guess B. But it's almost impossible to say. I feel probably, my confidence there is really low, like 10%. Almost no confidence on that. All right, this one, I have like a 40%, 40 to 50% confidence there. I feel like it's going to be C or D. I could be very wrong, but I felt like this was like a description of the experiment, so that it'd be coming in the middle of the paragraph. Combining sentences, I'm at 99% confidence. Yeah. All right. Accurate information from the graph. We got to move here. So I'm going to go ahead and just say C, and I'm not confident on that. That's more like a 40% confidence interval, representing the information in the graph accurately. Unbagged plants from the illuminated sites. These would be the ones that I think would get the most pollination. So let's just go ahead and say C there too. Why not? Again, I would say I have even perhaps lower. I should probably lower both of these to like a 30%. I think I'm just slightly better off than random chance on those, because random chance would be 25%. Transition, but these pollinators were regularly visiting the unbagged plants in the dark sites. Yeah, okay, that would make some sense. I'm going to go with B here. That does make some sense to me. That does seem to be talking about, again, what I'm gleaning from this is there's an idea that, if maybe the pollinators prefer unbagged plants in a dark site to a bagged plant in a light site. That could be a key idea here. So let me just jot that down, and I'll double check my answers based on that idea. Prefer unbagged in dark to bagged in light. And so if they're presented with that choice, they're going to go to the unbagged dark. Unbagged from the bagged plants from the dark. And that's going to make me rethink this and move to A. Okay. All right. Idiom. This one I feel actually somewhat good about this. Like I'm going to give myself a 70% shot on this. Yeah, I feel good about that answer. These graphs I'm still not that sure about. This idiom, like I said, I would give myself a pretty good shot at this. I'm going to give myself an 80% shot. All right, so let's look at the ones that I feel confident about. 11. So I think, my goal here would be, can I get more than half of these questions right? I should be able to get half the questions right. All right, I'm so nervous. It's time for the big reveal. We'll see what happened on the paragraph, on each passage. So let's reveal and see if I think that my answer should remain the same or should change? Here it comes. Yes. Whew. Okay. Question 1 is correct. The modern convenience that illuminates. It illuminates. My strategy worked. These others would have matched with they. A matched with it. I am pretty happy about that. All right. I wish I had like a smiley face or a star. Maybe I'll just do a check mark. Correct. Oof. Number 2, I'm not feeling good about. I'm just at the same as random chance. Maybe I'm a little bit better off just from an intuitive standpoint. Ah! Ooh, there it is. Oh my gosh, I got it. Sought to investigate a potential threat to nocturnal pollinators, and that threat was artificial light. And I should have tried to predict what the no change would have been. That might have helped me out, because the no change, I should have been able to predict it would have been a semicolon, just looking at this pattern. So it looks like I am now 2 for 2. Three is also looking good. Some of the plants were covered with mesh bags to outlaw visits. No, that's way too strong, too dramatic. You're just preventing the visits. 3 is also correct. Now 4, I'm not feeling good at. Oh, wow. I did it, guys. I promise you. I did not look at this test. I pulled it off for 4-2. If that is not the, that is, I am very happy so far at what's happened. Let me just double check that because I may have spoken too soon. Before the plant's flowering began, some of the plants were covered with mesh bags to prevent visits from pollinators. Okay, that's a sentence. So I can't use, say, a transition word because this is also a sentence. Others were left unbagged. I've got a subject, I've got a verb. So that's a sentence too. I can't use a transition word like meanwhile or however. So I was right that C was not going to happen. And it's not a cause and effect. It's not that they were covered with mesh bags so that others were left unbagged. There's a contrast there. Some were left unbagged, some were covered with mesh bags. B was correct. Wow. All right. Now this one that I thought was going to come at the end. And that might be right. Again, I might be 5 for 5 on this. Like I am shocked, honestly, if this is going to work too. Half of the plants in each categories were then illuminated during the nighttime hours. Is that right? Okay. No. Okay. So what I'm thinking about in a situation like this is Dr. Knopp's team to investigate the threat. So to do so, the team 1 and 2 are not going to be broken. So not after sentence 1. To do so, the team located samples of the thistle plant before the plant's flowering began. Some of the plants were covered with mesh bags. Well, this doesn't get into, okay, which are ordinary dark at night. Let me just copy this question up if I could so I can see it right next to the paragraph in a clearer way. I think I still have a shot at getting this right because let me just look at question like after sentence 2 again. And these do take some time. So the team located samples of the thistle plant Cirsium oleraceum, which is pollinated by insects in mountain meadows that are ordinarily dark at night. No, it can't go after 2. We need to set up the experiment first. The experiment has not really been introduced. So B is wrong. Now what about before the plant's flowering began, some of the plants were covered with mesh bags to stop visits from pollinators. However, others were left unbagged. Half of plants in each category. Okay, the categories were the bagged and unbagged. Right. Okay. The scientists measured how much fruit each plant produced after this whole illumination situation. C was correct. I was worried it was going to be D, but D luckily was kind of like the final result of the experiment, and what I chose was like a detail of how the experiment was being conducted. Wow, 5 for 5. Okay. Now I know I got 6. So now I've achieved my goal of getting at least half the questions right because I've got 6 out of 11 now. I barely need to look at this. Because they couldn't be visited by pollinators, they self-fertilized and thus averaged only about, okay, and I needed to use the information from the graph. This is where things could start going wrong. This is where things could start going very wrong. So we're going to need to go to the graph on the next page and I'll take a look at it. I don't think this is going to go well. I mean, that's just, did I get this? If I got this one, I swear to you guys, I'm very surprised. I'm very, very surprised. I promise that I have not ever seen this test before. And yeah. So, okay, I think I got this one wrong actually, because, yeah, I got this one wrong. Okay, I think I got this one wrong. Let's just look at this. So, the bag plants self-fertilized and thus averaged only about, if they were bagged, 15, yeah, it's more like 15 in dark sites. Yeah, it would be more like 15 than 20. So I missed that one. Yeah, and then 85 in illuminated sites would be more like dark sites. Okay. The bagged plants. Oh, no, because we're still focused on the bag plants only. So it's the bag plants fertilized. It was 15 plants, whether or not they were in dark or illuminated sites. Okay. So I was wrong. First one wrong. The graph, I thought that was going to throw me off. This should be B. Okay, and I'll double check the answer key for this just to make 100% sure. But I feel pretty because the focus was on the bagged plants, right? The bagged plants. So we're only looking over here. All right, I don't feel great about my next answer either. On the other hand, unbagged plants from the dark side, the sites produce an average of 90 fruits per plant, whereas bagged plants, okay, and then we got to think, whereas bagged plants from the darks, okay, so what produced, so that was the unbagged plants from the illuminated sites. Bagged plants, unbagged plants from the illuminated sites. Yeah, it has nothing to do with artificial light. So it should have been C there. That one was wrong as well. It should be C, unbagged plants from the illuminated sites. So those graph questions, is that fair? I think if I'm doing this going forward, I should look at the graphs, right? How would I, that doesn't really count as the passage in a way. Okay. I don't know. Maybe we'll do half and half. All right, moving along. Kind of a sad page here. Two wrong. Hopefully we can come back. I mean, I still have beat out perhaps the average person. And let me just try briefly to understand this experiment so that I have a better. So if you are unbagged, fruit production changes. Increases. Bagged, no effect. Because they can't be visited by fertilizer. Because cannot be visited by fertilizer. By pollinators, I should say. Okay, so that's the key idea. The researchers concluded that nocturnal pollinators were avoiding the unbagged plants in the illuminated sites. Okay, so they're avoiding the unbagged plants in illuminated sites. Yeah, okay. And now we've got to decide if the daytime, something like, I'm not so sure about 9 anymore, which affected the overall yield of the plants. Okay, well, that might not get us a transition to what comes next. What's coming next? Okay, so there was a decline in the daytime pollinators. Plants were less okay. Artificial illumination has a adverse effects on plant pollination. Okay, so excessive light is hurting the fact. So these pollinators were regularly visiting the. Okay, I don't know if that's the big. No to C. C seems too broad. I think it's actually going to be D here. Um, Daytime pollinators. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more. I'll think about the. Okay, A was correct in 10. I'm going to come back to this because I haven't really been reading it for content. So A is correct in 10. Presence of. C is correct in 11. I'm going to still think about 9 because I haven't really been following the whole logic. I haven't really been reading the passage as deeply as I should. So before I decide on 9, I'm going to just say, okay, artificial lighting is contributing to the decline of plant pollinating insects. Okay, so daytime okay, but we're talking about nighttime, and artificial light is hurting these plants, or hurting these pollinators. And unbagged plants fruit production changed with light exposure. Okay, so the ones that are self-fertilizing, if they get light, that helps them. But with the bagged plants, they can't be visited by pollinators. So they're going to, did we say A here? C, I'm rethinking 7 now. Okay, so an averaged about the bag plants. The bag plants couldn't be visited by pollinators, fertilized, and let's just see, bag plants. Yeah, okay, so it was the same. It was about 15 whether or not they were. Is that what we said? Yeah, 15 whether they were in dark sites. Okay. Unbagged plants from the dark sites produced an average of 90 fruits per plant. Whereas the ones exposed to artificial light just produced 78 fruits, 13% decline in production for plants that were illuminated at night. Okay, so nocturnal pollinators were avoiding unbagged plants in the illuminated sites, affecting the overall yield. We're avoiding the unbagged plants in the illuminated sites, but was the, and then we'll think about, I wanted to think about, so they were avoiding the plants in the illuminated sites, and that was affecting now when it's illuminated, you're getting less of a yield. But we already talked about yield, so I don't know. A seems kind of redundant. Decline in visits from daytime pollinators. And we have multiple reasons. So we want to reduce artificial light. And now I'm thinking, it's probably going to be D here. Daytime pollinators were not making up for the loss. Yeah, so I was wrong on this. And we'll just double check all of my answers here. But I feel pretty happy all in all. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 11 correct on that first passage. So pretty respectable, I would say, given that I couldn't see it at all. All right, we'll take a break there and maybe come back for some more SAT action in just a moment. Okay, guys, welcome back to my blindfold solve of SAT QAS March 2021. We did the first passage of the writing section, and I felt pretty happy with my results all in all. I feel like if I had looked at the graph, I might have been able to even get 1 or 2 more there. Came out with 8 out of 11. We're on now to the next passage. And question 12 is a concision question, concision or redundancy question. I'm noticing some redundant language, trend and tendency, national trend. I'm sure something else in the passage says that like it's happening across the country. So B looks pretty good. I mean, the only thing that could go wrong is if A is somehow shorter than B, expresses that idea more concisely than B does. But I think that's unlikely, and so I would rate my chances here at 85%. Um, Now in 13, this seems to be a question about, um, you know, it also has an element of concision in it, but it's also going to be about, complete sentences. Like C, this looks like this would create a fragment. So I think this is wrong. B sounds redundant additionally rather than just saying and. D looks pretty good to me. The only way D could be wrong in my mind is if A is right, kind of similar to 12. I'm a little bit less confident here, but still fairly confident. I would say I have a 75% confidence on D. All right, for 14, I'm going to eliminate B, him or her. I would guess that my guess for A is that I'm going to try to make predictions for what it says. A says them would be my guess. This is a pronoun question. It's an ambiguous pronoun question. Um, and spell that right. And typically with these questions, you're trying to choose the answer that is most specific and that fits in the context. Now here, unfortunately, I can't know if it's going to be C or D. These are the two I would feel, I feel 90%, maybe even 95 that it's one of these options. I'm going to go with D, but it could very well be C here. So all in all, again, I'm going to give myself, say 70% confidence there, maybe slightly more. I'm feeling, yeah, but just in the interest of time. So we're going to keep going. Sorry about that, guys. Zoomed out there. Okay. Now, this is a question about plural possessive confusion in question 15. Um, you know, individuals' motives. It's going to be C here. I feel pretty sure about that. There's probably like a verb after this, and you can't put, it's rare. Yeah, so we need to show that the individuals have the motives. So I'm going to say C is probably the right answer. I bet A. I bet A looks like this: individuals' motives. And you can't say, it's not like there's. Uh, oh, actually, ooh, I almost lost out there. That would actually make sense. I'm moving that up. Ooh, if it said an individual's motives, C would be correct. Okay, I almost let myself get tricked by the test because this is many individuals: one individual, two individuals, three individuals. So different individuals' motives may vary. It's A. Definitely A. 95%. Okay, I'm going to be sad if that. Oh no, the table. Now, I talked about how the table is, I'm not going to be able to tell what's going on a table. Okay, I'm going to skip these for now. Maybe I will give myself permission to look at the table because I don't know that this actually is worthwhile to attempt. Now, main idea of the paragraph. Um, Conflicts. Okay, is it about employee morale? We're going to have to come down here and see if there's any information about that. Oh no. Oh no. There's no information. Oh gosh, that's bad. Broaden their customer bases. Okay, are they getting more customers? Fewer conflicts. Improve current employees' morale. I mean, that would be, yeah, that would make sense. This would make sense to me as well. I don't know what A says. The idea is that if you have a casual dress code, you can go to work in jeans. Something's going to happen because of that. I think that people do feel happier. So D kind of just makes sense to me at an intuitive level, but I'm not sure about it. Let's look at 19. Hard to say. Hard to say here. Hmm. I'm going to go with B. That's just gut. I have no idea. I'm going to say that my chances are just above random shot there. This one I'm going to guess is an extra punctuation question. When you see punctuation around a preposition like with, typically the option that has no punctuation is correct. My guess would be A says something like with comma. And typically when you see punctuation around a preposition, you're going to want to go with the option that has no punctuation. Okay, diction question in 21. Hard. I don't think admissible. Maybe genuine. Yeah, I'm just going to go with genuine. I don't feel strong about that. Oh, by the way, on 20, I didn't give a prediction. I'm going to say 80% there. Here, I feel much less strong. I would say maybe 30%, not very much better than random chance. Could easily be A. I guess I've eliminated 2, so maybe I'll move myself up to 40%. But okay, transition word, conversely, furthermore, incidentally. Ooh, that's our last question. Obviously, I have no idea because I don't know the logical sequence. Conversely, I'm going to go with conversely. That just jumps out to me for some reason. I feel like, one pattern you might see is the idea that they're going to bring down an idea and they're going to say down here. Conversely, having that kind of dress code can make clients trust the company less, right? If you go into the bank and the banker's in a t-shirt, could be bad. So I'm thinking maybe they brought up like a negative idea here. So conversely, I'm just going to go with D here because that seems, but it seems kind of weird to say current employees morale. Like, why do they need to say current employees? Because maybe like the old idea was like attracting new employees. Yeah, so that would make sense at the old idea. So that one I'm not feeling horrible about, but it's still, I'm just going to say 40%. I don't feel 100%. I don't feel that good about this. This, I'll say again 40, 50%, maybe even less. I'm not feeling very strong. So maybe I should look at my predictions and see how they align, because I don't know if I'm actually good, making accurate predictions about my chance of getting these things right. The table questions, I feel like I should be able to look at the table. I feel like I should, but we'll do that from here on out. I'm just gonna say fewer than a quarter. I have no idea what I'm saying. I think it's just because like fewer than might sound awkward to people and they might not choose it. So that kind of fanciness. Only 18% preferred. Yeah, actually, yeah, that seems like it's relevant. I'm gonna say A there. I feel pretty good about that actually. I feel like even like a 60% here for this. I don't, again, just above chance. All right, I think that wraps up all the questions. So let us now see how I did. Ooh. Question. See, I told you guys if it weren't B, it would have to be A. It's A. This was overly wordy. Oh, maybe not. Let me just double check though, because sometimes you go too short. B is correct. I got lucky. Typically, the answer here is the one that's too short, but this one is a situation where too short actually cuts off that idea of trend. And so if you say just reflects workplaces across the United States, you're not getting the idea that it reflects a new trend. So B actually is right. Now C and D are too wordy. A lacks that critical info that it's a trend. C, trend or tendency, we knew that was redundant. National, well, I told you guys it was going to say a country like the United States. Yeah, so that would be redundant. All right, for 13, okay, interesting. So yeah, A ended up being a semicolon, creating a fragment. D is right, so I got this one right. And B is redundant. Additionally, they can boost. So yeah, we've got a sentence here. Boosting morale among current employees is not a sentence. and boosting morale among current employees is not a sentence rather. So really, this is like flexible dress codes can make and boost morale. So there are two things they can do. They can make a company more attractive and boost morale. So great. And I kind of intuited that there were two groups of people, right? Potential workers and the people currently working there. And I'm feeling good about one of my later answers that said, I think it was like question 20 or something that was like, transition, the main idea of this paragraph. Uh, One of the things was boosting morale. So we'll see how that goes. Um, okay, wrong on this. I said it was going to be between employees or the flourishes. It's actually employees. Um, Allowing the employees, not allowing the flourishes to retain a greater sense of personal identity. So that was one I said came down to C or D. C ended up working out. So that's my first one wrong. Two right, one wrong so far. All right, let's see if I said 95%. Yes, individuals' motives. Yeah, many individuals, the motives of many individuals. Yeah, so A is correct. Um, this is, yeah, this is wrong. It would be all or more than half. I would prefer, yeah. So the table, according to the study, who wanted to be employed with a company with a relaxed dress code, casual dress code, or no dress code, 27%. So, but that's not more than half. Let's double check. Essentially, okay. So who wanted 18% wanted to work at a company that has has a formal dress code, um, and so 31%, 27%. Yeah, so really this is going to be more than half, right? This is the group that didn't want that formal dress code. So I was wrong there. No big surprise to me. Those table questions are a thorn in my side. But let's see if I can pull it off with 16. Um, Now, 31 said they wanted a company with a business casual. Further, 27% said they would prefer a casual dress code or no dress code at all. Only 18% preferred a, so no to B. It doesn't refute an opposing point of view. It doesn't misinterpret the, yeah, so these reasons are wrong. I think A is right. And so, again, 2 out of 3 for this page. Not too bad. Um, all right, and I said earlier that this could be about the current employees' morale. I felt better about that question after I saw the topic paragraph, but now for some reason I'm feeling a little bit iffy about it. Okay. Um, yeah, I think I'm right about that. Current employee morale. Yeah, it's not expressing individuality, being comfortable and engaged. Now employees feel positive. That's employee morale, right? How they're feeling in the office. So they're feeling happy because they can dress the way they want to. I was right on 18. Um, I think I pulled off 19 as well. Didn't feel good about that, but the key word there is when. So this is a subordinating conjunction. When the accounting firm asked workers what changes they would like to see, workers said, right? So this is a subordinate clause, and it needs a main clause along with it. It's not an independent clause, so notice C. Um, and this would add another subordinating conjunction in D. So when the accounting firm, while workers said no, no, that would be too many subordinate conjunctions. B is actually correct. A is the same as saying that A is really the same as C. A comma plus a fanboy is equivalent to a semicolon. So I am very happy. Didn't think I had much chance of that, but I actually pulled it off. Let's look at 20. Help them the most with being comfortable. We don't need any punctuation to set that quote up. We're going to put a punctuation after like a verb like said, but we don't need it after a quote that's not aligned with that. So this almost makes it look like the quote is a non-essential phrase because said chief officer, right? This would almost, these commas would create a comma sandwich. So I am right there. Just a direct quote. Okay, wrong here. Wrong in the diction. That should be appropriate. It's definitely not genuine. So I said it came down to A or D, and I was wrong. It is appropriate. That's a good way to describe clothes, right? You might have heard a teacher say, inappropriate clothing or something like that, or in your dress. Okay, this is wrong too. 22 wrong. This is an addition, so formal workplace attire is appropriate and required in some contexts, job interviews and client meetings. And going further, in certain occupations, uniforms are still necessary. So this is furthermore, not conversely. There's no contrast. And incidentally is just kind of like as a random aside. So no to that. Okay, so that was wrong. Let's see how I did in total. I'll just count up the number right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right here. Okay, so not as good as my last passage. I feel like, and I feel like I maybe could have pulled off 14. Anything else I could have pulled off? This I had no idea. Yeah, but that's the only one that I think, okay, that's the, and this one was lucky. So, all right. Should we get into the next passage? Why not? I'm having fun. 23 is, again, looks like a complete sentences type question. Now, if choice A is something like history's using, which it may be, it would be correct. I'm gonna say A is correct. I don't like these other options. I think that the reason that I don't like something like D is that comma plus fanboy would be typically is equivalent to a period. So typically we'd need like a subject over here, comma, and they use, but that doesn't do that. So I feel like this is, there are some exceptions. There are some situations when something like C could be correct, but that would just be a hard question. We can talk about if we see it. That would be a situation where C would be saying like something like histories that they use, like the that being unstated, creating a subordinate clause out of or a relative clause with this second part. All right, enlarged, offended, emphasized, diction question. It's going to come down to me. I feel like, hard to say there. Emphasize sounds kind of good, but that's just going by my gut. Oh, for this one, I'm going to say I've got a 70%. Here, I'm coming down to like, I don't feel that good, 40%. Okay, effectively combines the questions. It's definitely not B or D. Those are just too long-winded. Couldn't be. Has the result that, why not just say which results in? This is an outcome that helps ensure. I'm going to guess it's C because these both show like a cause-effect relationship. And this shows a contrast, but of course we can't know without seeing so this is like still a question mark because I don't know what the logical relationship is. If there's a contrast, A would be right. I still feel pretty good. I'm going to say 65%. And, if it's between A and C, I can say 100%. Okay, if we were just saying, I could choose 2, 100%. Main argument on the passage. D doesn't look that good to me because if they may not be easy to measure. C sounds like something the SAT would talk about, so I'm just going to go with that. A, we don't know about A, so it's probably for me C or A. Don't feel that good about it. I'm just going to go 50% shot on that. main argument. And we might be able to come back to this after we see some more details in some of these answer choices. I feel pretty good about this is an extra punctuation question. So I feel pretty certain that the answer is D. You don't want punctuation around a preposition. So to is a preposition. And so, I bet A is something like maybe putting a dash or putting a semicolon after that too, or maybe putting a comma after results. So I'll just put my guesses for A. Results can lead to, results can lead to, oh, we already have that, so we said semicolon. Or maybe something like results can lead to. Those would be some situations I would imagine for A. All right, so I'm pretty sure there. I would put my certainty at 90%. Maybe even a little bit higher, but just to be conservative. Okay, subject, verb. They were, they are. It's going to be A or B would be my guess. I'm going to say B, based on that trick that we talked about earlier. Now, of course, that could be wrong if this incorporates some like tense issues, but a lot of these questions that seem to be about tense are actually about subject verb. Now, but what would, yeah, so A might say have been would be my guess. And then all of those would then match with they, and then B matches with it, so it would be correct, because it would be the only one that would be singular. Now, but I'm not 100% on that. I mean, there's certainly ways that that could be wrong. I mean, I've seen. So that's more, I'm going to even say like a 60% on that, maybe 65%. Positions, however, ooh, interesting. B looks good. I'm going to skip that one. B looks kind of good because if it's like doing a transition, you want, however is kind of non-essential, but I'm wondering how C gets rid of however altogether. Like that shouldn't be possible, and it's making me almost lean towards C. D seems really bad. I would love to see what A says here. Love to see it. But, how can you just get rid of this transition? That almost suggests to me that it already has like a kind of negativity in it. So I'm going to say C. I'm going to put that at 60% because my guess is that somewhere in this paragraph, you're seeing something like, while not everybody wants these positions, however, and if we already said while or whereas, this becomes repetitive, this however. And so that's the only way that I think this option could be here. And I'm wondering if A says something like positions, however, comma. Yeah, but that's an interesting one. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. Down in 30, we've got possessive plural confusion again. B is wrong. That's crazy. The history doesn't have anything. So like browsing histories, like, the SAT doesn't like this, like two possessives next to each other. So they never say something like, Matthew's dog's collar. Even though that does make sense, the SAT avoids that kind of construction. So I don't like B. D looks good to me. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that because these are the browsing histories of different users. I'm kind of surprised that they're testing this like plural possession skill twice because we saw a question like that before, but whatever. And then probably C says like users, yeah, users browsing history. Now, or A rather says this. Now, A could be right if it says a user's browsing history. So I'm a little bit worried that that could be the situation. It says like a user's browsing history because, it could easily do that. Yeah, so that worries me, especially because this skill was tested before. I'm going to still give myself, I mean, I'd say it's a 50-50 shot on that, maybe even 55. I haven't used 55, so we'll say 55%. If it's not D, it's definitely, even, I can't even say it's definitely because this is possible. Um, um, they searched, no, I don't feel like C is possible. I'm going to eliminate that as an option. So it's really down to A and D. Don't hate me if A is right because it could easily be right. Now we're getting this election thing in here. Um, I'm going to say A or C here, okay? Because remember earlier on, I thought maybe this is about effect on election, um, candidate selection. Yeah, so could be A, could be C here, and this sounds like it's related to elections and users' browsing histories or something. I don't know. It seems weird to say that election outcomes are unaffected since um, but there are mitigating factors. That seems like a fancy word that not a lot of people would know, so maybe the SAT is just going to throw that in there to trick you. There are things that kind of like go against the idea of the study. Um, I'm really worried about election, yeah, I kind of like this, but again, I'm not feeling, this is like a transition phrase question. Um, C has that atypical. This finding was by no means atypical. Other people found the same thing. That sounds kind of good to me as well. So I'm really not feeling that confident here. Um, and who knows what A says. So I don't think D. That's just a guess. Um, okay. Underlying phrase. We don't know what the underlying phrase is. Um, search engine filters, bubbles developed, kept because it's about offering search engines by offering. No, it doesn't offer a solution. My guess is it's just kind of giving an additional detail. Filter bubbles are the idea that you only see the information that that your friends have posted. So you're kind of like in a bubble when you go online because you're not seeing the true situation out there. Um, I'm going to say A. This could be true. I mean, obviously, we can't see the passage, just a feeling there. I don't feel that confident, but I still give myself like 40% there. Um, Here, I think I'm no better than random chance. I really think I'm at 25% here. Um, Transition. I'm going to say from the previous paragraph, I'm going to go with D. I'm just going to, I don't think that they're going to say that the election outcomes are not going to be affected by what's going on here. Could be A. I'd say D or A, 50%. With D, again, I don't feel strongly. I'm going to say 40% there. That might be too high. All right, I think we've made it to the end. Time for the big reveal. Um, yeah. Okay, I'm nervous. Okay, how do we do on oh, I was wrong about what happened in A there. Wrong on 23. I went way too far with my prediction. History's using. If it said using, um, okay. Many search engines collect data from users, such as locations and search histories. I mean, this is a run on, so A is wrong. B is wrong. That's also, you can't put a semicolon between. Um, C is wrong, so D is right. Yeah. Uh, bad start there. 24 also wrong. Filter bubble, a biased worldview that is reinforced, not emphasized. That comes back around. Ooh, bad start here. It is important, especially with regards to political issues, that search engines make their filtering practices explicit so that users, yeah, finally got this one. There's no contrast. It's a cause and effect. They make their filtering, they let the users know so that the users can be aware of biases, especially when those decisions impact duties. Yeah, this sounds good. We have to look at the rest of the paragraph, but I might have gone 50-50 here, which is not too bad. How about in 27? Oh, did I predict that? Yes, I predicted that would be one of the answer choices. It is wrong. The answer is D. So this was my prediction about what was in that space was correct. Participants whose searches favored a given candidate, wrong here. Completely wrong. Okay. This is a tense question, not a subject verb. So because I didn't know really what was going on, I couldn't see the other tense information. I couldn't see things like were divided each group was to know that this needs to be in the past tense. And so this was wrong. It should be participants were 12% more likely. C. So this passage has been pretty bad so far for me. Okay, but I redeemed myself with 29. That looks right. Because I said if there was that subordinating conjunction up here, there was that sense that this was kind of redundant, right? And that's the only way that, but I didn't see this comma issue. Oh no, there is no evidence that commercial intentionally skew their results in favor of certain candidates or positions. That does need to have a comma to set up that subordinate clause. So again, no, A would be correct. Didn't see that coming as an option. I think I said when we were doing that, I'd love to see what A says. Okay, luckily I got 30, so I came around for 30. More than one user. It doesn't say a user here, so I kind of know, all right, users plural. You can't put on the SAT, you're not going to see like a possessive next to a verb like this, so that would be crazy. All right, 50-50 again. Not so bad. D is wrong. I think A is correct. Yep. Skew the results in favor of could produce similarly slanted results. This possibility is troubling. Yeah. No, it's not about the search. It's A. This possibility is troubling because users think that their results are showing them everything and not skewing toward a particular, toward a particular ideology or type of politics. Yeah, and it's actually C here. This finding is by no means atypical, so this passage was not good for me. This was a standard finding, or this was not the only time a similar finding has happened. 60%, 66% of people believe that results represent all available information, just like this group. Most users think their searches display the full spectrum, all available information. So the finding was not atypical. The finding was, in fact, typical. So, wow, not good. Filtering is essential but in the case of political information, is important for users to be aware. If search engines publish this information by displaying a warning that results are selected based on user preferences, for example, users would be better able to read political coverage. It does offer a solution to. It's not delete. I don't, did they ever say you could present a warning before? I didn't see any warning. No, any idea? Uh, okay. Well, it had the idea, but it didn't get explicit. It didn't give a specific, um, it's not really a point. So I think this is a potential solution. Um, so I think B makes more sense here. I'm going to eliminate A, change the answer to B, wrong as well. So this was our worst passage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this one's right. 6, 7 wrong. 7 wrong, 5 right. So I came in under average there. Not happy about that. I got to redeem myself in the final passage. All right. Final passage. Oh, I almost deleted that, ruining the entire idea. Um, ooh, so I'm gonna go with it's either A or D here. I don't. Well, see, I can't really say there. I'm gonna have to come back to this. This is a punctuation question. Um, this could be a comma with a comma, dash with a dash. Like it could say something like, such as Picasso, Mona Lisa. In either of these cases. So if it ended with a dash, ended with a comma, that would kind of tell us what to choose. As right now, I can't see what's going on there, so I don't know. I'm going to come back to that. I don't know that I'll be able to get that. Previous sentence to the information that follows, probably C in light of the study's results. Like, we got a study, we got the result, maybe, could be A. That's just a wild guess. I'm going to go 50%. I'm going to choose D, just following the strategy, the only strategy I really know how to use here, which is to pray that it's really a subject-verb agreement question, and that, here we've got, say, have been, were, are, was, and then that would follow my pattern of they, it, and I'll choose the it option. Now, we saw in the last passage that doesn't always work, so I'm going to say 60% here, maybe 70. D and B sound kind of good. This is about Native Americans, and so this is kind of like seems more specific. But we'll see if we can get some more information. This seems like B, because like these others seem broad, so more specific options seem better. Of course, it could be A, but I feel like a 70% because I think that the paragraph's going to talk about ledger art. Okay. Combining the sentence. So I can get this one right, I'm sure. Combining sentences questions I don't need context for. Bus, the sides of which would include sides of the bus with vivid picture. That looks good. It's the shortest. Bus's sides sounds kind of awkward to say. And this design featured in vivid pictogrammic form. No, why not just say vivid pictograms? Sides of the bus in these places. No, that's repetitive to say in these places after saying sides. No to that. No to this. Which would include, I don't feel good about that phrasing because that just seems, which would include seems like it's getting like subjunctive, or like the idea is that they didn't include, but they would in the future include. So no to A. I feel pretty confident about B. Not at the same level as our last combining sentences, but I still feel like a 90% there. Oops, sorry guys. Now for 40, this could be either, his would be the most logical thing because we're talking about some guy, right? This artist. So I'm just going to go with his. I mean, could it be One of these, I mean, it's not C. I really doubt it's C. Maybe A is something like your or we or um, yeah, maybe A is something like our or your, something like that. So I feel like that's a 50, maybe 55%, maybe 60% even. Just leave it at 55. So here I can eliminate D immediately. And okay, oh, well, in 41, I'm going to eliminate B. This is a diction question. Exalting doesn't really make sense. I mean, embellishing a story, like kind of adding details, um, could also make sense in like an artistic, like embellishing a design. So I'm going to go with C. Don't feel great about that. I would say 50-50 there. And for 42, I mean, one of the rules of the SAT is you're not putting a comma between somebody's name and their job title, so I know D is wrong. This is about punctuation. Now, I don't know. I'm between something like, say, B and C. A probably is wrong too. A probably also puts like a comma between Rancher and Tony Richards, which you don't want to do. Now, could there be like extra details about Tony Richards here? Yeah, there could, and then a comma after them. So C could indeed be right. I'm not going to say it's wrong, but B just strikes me as, we'll say I have like a 60 shot there. I feel like B is a little bit stronger, maybe even 65. All right. Now 43. Uh, Impossible to say, really. Impossible to say. I'm just going to go with D. That's just a random guess. 25%. I don't have enough information to say. Something like B could be good too if they wanted a hard question right at the end. D would make sense. Um, yeah, that's hard. I could even see. Yeah, that's hard. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna move fast here. Direct quotation that summarizes the passage. All right, this seemed to be about Native American art. Um, I don't think we're talking about banking. Uh, that's, is this really about? I mean, maybe this is about a like bank that is like trying to convince Native Americans to use banking because they're not using it enough. Um, and they did a study. They found that Native Americans aren't using banking. Um, and maybe it's B here. I don't feel as good about D because we brought in that artist, and so now I'm thinking A and C. It's not about computers. No, I'm thinking A and B here. Let me just try to get a better sense of the main idea. So this could also be A. Yeah, I'm changing this to A, and I know I said 70%, but I guess I got to revise. I'm lowering my expectations because I think the focus is actually on some sort of like combining art and banking, maybe giving loans to artists. Maybe this bus is like a bank bus that can go to like reservation areas that typically don't have banks. Um, this I'm also kind of feeling like might be A because it's not talking about the art anymore. Still not B, but I'm just going to put a little question mark next to A because embellishing and exaggerating can mean the same thing. Ooh, you know what? Let's go ahead and change that to A now that I'm thinking a little bit more about the story. I might come to regret that, but we're changing it to A. So embellishing, see, it's between A and C. Those are the real ones for me. Now, hub, there's nothing I can do with this really. I'm just going to end it with hub. Let's go to B here, because if I'm going to be risky, change this to A, I think I just undid that. But if I'm going to be risky, I'm going to guess that they're trying to make this a harder question. That sometimes happens at the end, so I'm going to change this to B. That there's like another subordinate clause afterward. This is going to be A or C. Yeah, and because I can see C, I mean, the idea that it's beautiful to think about, that quotation, let's say A, but I can't eliminate C, but C just seems kind of silly, honestly. There's this banking bus. The fact that it's beautiful to think about, okay, maybe. I mean, this provides access to capital as it passes through the space where the community resides. Maybe, you know what, fine, we can see it. I just think that that's kind of a silly quote, but if the focus is on aesthetics and beauty, which it seems to be, it could work. All right, I guess we made it through. Did I answer all these questions? I didn't know what this was going to be. Artists. I don't like B or C. See, I just don't know. I especially don't really like B. Maybe I'll go with B. I really, that's a 25%, guys. I really have no clue, sadly. There's nothing. I mean, what would my gut say? My gut says no change. Let's just move it to no change. My gut says no change for some reason. Thank God. That was correct. Oh man, that was just going by gut. Because this ended up being unnecessary punctuation, which I couldn't necessarily tell. Extra punctuation, which I couldn't tell from the answer choice alone. But you're not going to put a single piece of punctuation between a subject. I'm wrong. It was D. It was D. Sorry. This goes a study, and then this just describes the organization. So we're just, yeah. So I should have left it at D. Bye bye. I should have recognized perhaps that the test didn't have that many of these like non-essential element, like interruption type questions where you have like a comma sandwich, some people call it. So comma with a comma, correct answer is D. I was wrong. I should have left it at D. I got too excited there. Okay. Study, 4 out of 10 had home businesses in art. They could not sell this art. And in light of the study's results, yeah, that's correct. Based on the study, this took action. The outcome was nice. Yeah, this did follow my they have pattern. So like choice A was have been, right? So that would have matched with they. And I even think I predicted it was going to be have been. So I was correct here. And if I said if it was subject verb, I would get it right. It was subject verb. It's not tense. Okay, know the difference because you can, if it's a subject verb question, then you can kind of use this strategy to answer it. And oh, I didn't answer this. B. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if I can give myself full points for that because I kind of said between A or B. And so I don't know what we're going to do there. If we're going to treat that as like maybe a 0.5. Sorry about that, guys. That kind of ruins my experiment, but okay. Yeah, I don't know if I should count it. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to put an X there. I'm just going to say half a point if we could, right? That seems fair because I kind of came down to those two options. So that's a weird one. Okay, let's uncover this. No, this should have been B. I remember I changed that. Should have been B. I shouldn't have changed it. This doesn't give us information about why he would have been chosen. Um, yeah, ledger, because I thought about originally the A. Should have gone with my gut there. The idea of ledger art needs to be introduced. So wrong there. And how many, what are we at now? So, okay. Two wrong, 2.5 wrong, 2.5 right. We'll treat it like that. So about 50-50. 39. I said I was going to get this right. He created a lavish design for the sides of the bus with vivid. Yep, that's correct. So I was correct there. Oh, wrong. I said, yeah. The buses. I should have thought about that. Should have thought about that. It's the bus's exterior, not his exterior, obviously. So, oh well. Not happy about that. I should have gone through that again. Embellishing is now seeming better to me, but that wouldn't be fair. I changed it to A. Embellishing, though, is now seeming better. Oh, enhancing artist's ability. A was right, so I'm glad I didn't change that. Artists have an ability, and that's improving their ability, enhancing it A. So glad I changed that. Okay, and I got 42 correct as well. Thanks for that. No comma between, and this did put that comma. I even told you guys I think A is going to have that comma there, so I know that's wrong. But I don't know if there's going to be like a non-essential after Tony Richards. But this isn't non-essential. Like I can't delete out. Used to have to drive more than an hour to reach a local cultural center. No, that's the main clause. So that's like the main the main verb. So, and I can't put a single comma between the subject and the verb. Like Tony Richards is the subject, uses the verb. I couldn't put a single comma there. If the main verb came down here, yeah, I could have those double commas. So that is correct. Wonderful. Let's see what happened in 43. Nope, should have been D. While the gallery, yep, should have been comma, subordinate conjunction and comma. Bye. D was correct, right? While the organization ultimately aims to open a permanent space, that subordinate conjunction means that I want a comma after this clause. So D was correct. Yep, I got to, I was thinking that they were going to try to do a trick out there. Okay, A is, I think I'm right on this. Yep. C looks right to me. I'm going to now, so that finishes everything up. I'm going to now look at the answer key to make sure I haven't made any silly mistakes because I was doing that in kind of a weird way. So let me just pull up my answer key and we'll work backwards and then I will calculate my score. And we will see how I did. Did I, was I able to achieve my goal of getting, say, 250 points out of this section, which, would give me my goal was to get overall a 500 in the verbal section, which isn't impressive, but is the average score. And if I could do better than that, if I can do better than 500 across this whole section, then I will be pretty happy with my level of SAT skill. With that I could do that without even looking at the answers. So I'm just going to work my way back through and look at the answers here. I've got them pulled up. All right, so I wanted to give some conclusions and do kind of a debriefing about what happened. So I'm very happy with my score, actually. I managed to get more than half the questions right, even without looking at the passage. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I got 18 or 19 questions wrong. You guys remember I kind of gave myself a half point on that one question because I forgot to make a final answer and left it between those two options. It was kind of a 50-50 situation because one of those options did end up being right. But yeah, so it doesn't really matter because based on the curve for that test, whether or not I got 18 or 19 questions wrong, that still gives me a 290 out of 400 on the writing test, which again, I'm pretty happy with. That was my target. My target was to get better than 250 so that I could shoot for that or score around, 1,000 or 1,010 total, which would mean, I want 500. I should say a score of around like 510 total for the entire verbal section. That's my goal, right? Because that would mean that I'm doing better than the average person without even looking at the passage. So I achieved the goal. I would really have liked to have been over 300. And I think, if I'd let myself see those graph questions, that kind of gets to our next bullet point, right? The hardest questions to answer were, I don't know why that's in a different font size, but were graphs and transition word questions, right? The graphs, not being able to see them was pretty brutal, but I still managed to pull one off, maybe two, I think just one out of those. So that was pretty tough. Transition word questions, obviously, I can't see the context, so I have little idea. You guys kind of saw the strategies I was using without the context. On the other side, the easiest questions to answer were combining sentences questions, no problem. I don't need the test to answer that. I felt very confident on those. Idiom, another one I felt very confident on, right? This was kind of like standard phrasings that often involve like a preposition after, say, a verb, those set phrasings. So that's no problem. Apostrophe placement, I had little problem with too. So those were some of the categories I did best on. So yeah, just to wrap up, I encourage you guys to try this experiment out yourself. I'm going to try actually to develop some worksheets that build on the skills that I kind of used throughout this video. I'm going to give you guys some worksheets I think that are just answer choices, no passage. And with the kind of questions I'm going to select, you should be able to get them right without looking at the passage. So that could be fun. Yeah, I think that what this experiment really shows is if you are familiar with the test like I am, if you have that level of exposure, right? You've done every practice test multiple times like I've done it, you start to build up an intuition for certain kinds of questions. Other kind of questions you just know how to identify and how to make good guesses about what the answer is likely to be. And it's kind of, I'm honestly pretty pleased. Again, just, I keep repeating that, but I'm pretty happy with what I was able to do given the constraints I was under. And I think that it should be hopefully motivational for some of you out there who think, oh, I can never get better at the SAT. Guys, if I can do it without looking at the passage, if I can do better than, most students out there, even almost getting into that 300s level, right? If I had been able to look at the graph, I'm sure I would have hit the low 300s, which would mean that I'd have an overall verbal score, because it's just half the score, of potentially 600. Now, the next video I might do in this series, if you guys like this one and you want to see more, I'm happy to go into reading. That's another thing I do. I do reading without looking at the passage. This time, I think I will let myself look at the graph, okay? Because that was just too much. So hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it, and I've got a lot of other videos planned for the next week or so, so stay tuned for those, and I guess I'll sign off there. Have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.